Hello everyone. The Amazon man came. Now, I'm still streaming at 1080, so the difference possibly isn't as huge as we'd like, but I now have the opportunity to control the camera, and I can zoom in and out. I have checked. It zooms in and out a little odd, but it could be worse. We will get used to it. Now it is downscaling 4K to 1080 because apparently it only does 4K, which I find slightly weird because, you know, well, that is just slightly weird. So let me collect back on my table all the things that I'd moved, and let's have a look. Well, that looks a bit pants. Where's that gone? There it is. Right. It is not necessarily perfect. Let's move that. So, I had to adjust the colours a little bit because they were a bit washed out. So let's have a look and you can tell me what you think. So, obviously, you know, that's it in its most normal kind of manner. I do kind of want to shuffle it over slightly. No, you will notice that, I mean, other than the pillow's not straight, it actually can zoom out a bit further than that, and which is a little disconcerting because, well, it is. But for example, I can slightly zoom in, or I can really zoom in, and then I can move around a little bit to find where we put our stuff. And this is it at its maximum, I think. Yeah, that's its maximum zoom in. She's telling him off because he didn't let himself in. Worry not. So it doesn't, I mean, it's supposed to be 12 times zoom or something. Doesn't feel very 12 timesy, but it's kind of okay. Anyway, let's put it back to where we started. And I'm sorry, but I need to tilt it. I probably should move this slightly then. Don't want to move it too much because, well, there you go. That's a bit better. Now, we were very, very close, or we are very, very close to finishing this, and I want to kind of do it. I didn't watch a film, I had a nap actually. Well, that's not true. I ate, the Amazon man came, I checked everything worked, and then I watched someone else stream for a bit, and then I decided I needed a nap. So, we're a little bit out of sorts at the moment. We need to bunch some of these up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we need to do, well, we haven't really got a choice. We need to do the cloth stitch across next. So we need to package everybody up. For these things. Okay, and we will swing you round and out of the way. 2, 4, 5. And I'm going to need you later, but we will package you up anyway, just to be tidy. tidy, and just to make sure that we don't kill anything. Like that. And you can now bend round the corner and slide on top. You are the bobbins to be, and will be required shortly, so you can hang around there. You are some of the bobbins of that, and then we need some of the bobbins of this. So we need you can go over there for a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Except you're twisted. There you go. So let's do this. Now, I didn't take any painkillers. Never mind. I really need a pre-flight checklist, don't I? Let's do this. Well, actually, let's go down my direction a bit. There you go. That's as far as it will go, apparently. Right. I could, of course, move it by hand. I tightened everything up. Never mind, I'll do. Right. This feels crowded because you go over there and you come in. So we gain some, we lose some. I feel like I need my picture again. I feel like I need my picture again. So, you're out, which is right, because you need to go to do the rose ground. And let's just check. You meet you, so that seems perfectly happy. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not saying that's wrong, so see, this does feel wrong. But I don't think it is. Oh, Rory. Come on. Get on with it. Come on. Right. Don't try and cheese up afterwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, I don't think it's wrong. It just feels it when... I think it's because I haven't rejected those and I've moved across. And I'm picking up like a 7th pair as I'm ejecting the first pair. That. So let's eject like we had been, because stop catching on everything, please. And then that reminds me. Apparently I can't do properties while it runs, so I can't ask it a question. Oh well, never mind. We will carry on regardless. See, I might be able to actually broadcast in better than 1080p. Not sure I can do 4 times as much because I don't think my bandwidth allows for that. So, but I shall have a look. I shall. Because what I do know is because I set this up to be 1080, it's everything's sized at 1080, and if I change it, it moves everything, and I have to reseat everything and rejigger it around a bit, and which is fine. It's it's not the end of the world after all. It's not difficult, but it's another thing to do. stop sticking on other things. So, you'll have to tell me if it looks better. Just checking. Can you go up there a bit more? So, and we'll steal you two out at this point. Not saying it's wrong yet. Not saying it's wrong. Again, I forgot to take you two out at the beginning, and now I need to add two. So, twisted. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, there we go. Hooray, I can count. And we need you. You. I think you must be enough for a stick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which means we can pile you up for a minute. Like that. Keep you out of the way. It's only for now. Check. Yeah, that's right. That's right, I was slightly concerned briefly for a moment then. But no, I've got one more pinhole to the corner at the bottom. So that is right. Extra pair. That's looking. I've got 3 over there. That's everything's adding up. Side. Do we pin in the corner? There we go. I'm going to put you in there. Because you're friends with you, I'm going to take you as the working set, and I'm going to put a stick through you. Swing you around. Oh, she's got it now, has she? You can come round. Float. That word. You can unhook from that pin, and you can slide up over there, and you can come down, and you are the pins of next. You're on the pins of next, but I'm not going to need you in a hurry. I will need 4 of you, and I will need you as the pins of next. have done around this pin down here, we will have to have a look. And somehow, how have you done this? How have you got that tangled? Right. Oh look, ads. While I sort this out, let's have a look. Pin of poking. Might need one more of you. You have tangled. Might need, in fact, I'm pretty sure I need you. So let's have a look. 1 square, 2 square, 3 square. I need 4 of you actually. I need 4 of you. Any luck, it's you. Untwiddle. No, I don't think it is going to be you 4, so let's undo you momentarily then. Take jumper off because somehow hot again. You are not the pins. You have most certainly shenaniganed. I definitely want you, and I want the next 2 of this pile of dung over here. I think it's you. I'm not positive. Because some of you are one side of the pin, and some on that bottom pin is not covered. Like it was. Which is why it looked like a bit of a mess, I think. That's why the bit of mess was kind of the bit of mess. So, let's have a look. Running out of space. Too many bobbins. Let's take you out because you're not overly achieving. So, now, under you, are you? Then, so, let's think about this. You've been evicted, so it is we stitch you, put you in the hole, and we stitch you. You get to live over there, and you guys get to live over here. Stick of poking, stick of poking, make you flat. There you go. Part of the reason of making them flat is so that they are under the correct tension, because as we know these pins bend, well, with the wind, and so we do need to make sure that we are not overly screwing it up. Right, so you're at that side. First square, second square, third square, fourth square. So let's pile you up way at the whack, round those pins. You can shuffle all out the way. You, because we will be getting to you momentarily, can temporarily live over there. We need to sort you guys out a little bit. Actually, before we do that, we need to. You are crossed. You are not crossed. 50,000 pins. I'll stab you with a stick then. And come round to be stabbed with a stick. There we go. Try and keep some of you out of the pins. And the next four. Gear off. It'd be so nice if I could listen to something. Maybe that's my next quest. So obviously, you know, it's not that I don't enjoy talking to you, but in times when you are quiet and my brain starts overthinking, questioning itself, doing all the things that brains like to do, and having something in my ear and listening to some music would be nice. Let's zoom in for you. So you can watch a little bit closer as to what's going on. done. Silly. Trying to push you out the way. Now we need the next 4 of you. Time for some coke. I do hope you like the new camera. It looks like it's a lot sharper to me. Because bear in mind it's a 2-inch screen on my computer normally. But if I do that, I mean, it looks like it should be sharper. I mean, it doesn't look 4K. But of course it's scaled down to 1080. But there are no fuzzy edges on the strings like there were before. You can see the path of the strings as it runs through. So I was just looking at something. It doesn't look bad. I mean, it doesn't look 4K. But of course it's not 4K, it's 1080 scaled up to 4K. Well, it's 4K scaled down to 1080 and then back up to 4K because I've got a 4K monitor. So, but looking at that, it doesn't look terrible. I'd like to say it looks better. I mean, obviously I'd appreciate your opinion on it because, well, oddly enough, you look at it more than I do, so, and I've got twitchy eye, which means I'm stressed. Thanks, eyeball. You know, chill out. It's not so bad. Whatever it is, it will pass. Yeah, it looks pretty okay. As I say, there is a little beam that thought it would be better than that, but obviously if I was transmitting at 4K, I think it would be even clearer, but I'm not sure my bandwidth can handle 4K. What we could do is when we get to the end of the triangle, and I'll call it a night, I'll then set everything to 4K and it'll all be out of position. But we can pull up this screen in 4K and, well, see if it looks any better. Mind you, I could probably do it without actually starting up the whole stream, but I want to test the bandwidth, so I kind of have to, because if I can stream at 4K, I'm sure you'd all appreciate it. Yeah. Anyway, let me stop looking at that. Hey Nautical, does it look better than it did before? This is it zoomed in to its maximum zoomage. I have magic buttons now, so I can now send it back to whence it came. So this is the zoomed out version. It can actually zoom out more than that, and then you can see the mess that's in my house. So we're not doing that, although I do have buttons that will actually take it all the way out. But I can zoom in, or I've got magic buttons to press to zoom in to maximum zoomage. It is autofocus. It is, for the glory of all things furry, autofocus. So, it's not instant. You occasionally do get to see it. So, for example, if I tell it to scrunch in, you will occasionally see it do the focus. There it went. And then then of course, because it's not slap bang in the middle, I've got to move it around a bit. which is why I've kind of got a button. But if I zoom, there you go. So it's. I like manual too. Now I can set it to manual, but then I don't have buttons really, and part of my problem before was I wouldn't notice it was out of sync, because if you could see my screen, you'd understand. I've got a 32-inch screen, and if I tell you that the width of the actual screen that you're looking at on my screen is 2.5 inches by maybe 2, I can't tell if that's in focus or not. And if I do make it so it's nice and big and I can have a look, I can't see anything else. I've only got the one monitor, and I don't really have anywhere to put another monitor. So, but it doesn't do a bad job of the focus. It really doesn't. I will imagine that if I manage to get a nice big fat fingerprint on the lens or something, that will truly upset it greatly. But the problem is so I got this because all the other cameras were doing 720. This only does 4K. There doesn't seem to be, and it's not letting me look at the properties of it. Now we're live, so I can't, for want of a better word, mess with it. I can't ask it any questions. And so if I was to manual focus it, I can't do it through my computer. I can only do it if I program buttons on my Stream Deck. Which, actually, there is a way I can do it. There is a way. So let me poke this. Did I click the right button? No, I didn't. Right. So I can bring up a thing that allows me to see it. It's not doing it the way I normally would do it. But, so, for example, just to prove, I am not pressing on buttons on my thing, but let's just, I can wiggle the camera. And there are other options. I had to play with the white balancing a little. But, format. 4K, 60 frames a second, done. I don't need 60k frames a second, and, well, 4K is great, I'm only transmitting at 1080, and so it would have been nice if I could have picked 1080, but I can't, and I don't, apparently it's got lights on it, does it? I haven't seen them. Problem, of course, is it looks down, not across, but it does seem to be better than those that went before it, and certainly in terms of I got a webcam. So when I first started this, I spent a whopping £34 on a webcam, and well, it was a bit pants, to be honest, because with the light on that I need so that I can see, all it did was blow out all the whites, and it just and it also wasn't a great resolution, and so it frankly was a bit of a disaster. Not one of my proudest moments. So that's in a, it's in a thing in the corner of the room, sulking. So I'm just rescuing some threads from the wrong side of a pin. But I kind of want a bit of a... Seriously? Ad break again? It feels like 2 minutes ago you had ad breaks. But I'm glad to talk to you, Naughty Kelp, because frankly I was feeling a little lonely and wondering about how I could pipe me some music without sticking it on the stream, because, I sat here earlier, I think, for 2 hours or so on my own, and kind of my mind was kind of beginning to do the I'm bored, can I go to sleep now? Which is not a good thing, especially when we're so near to the bottom of the triangle. Have you seen? Look, only this bit to go. Look. It was only the other day that we were starting this one. frankly a bit weird. And moreover, when we looked earlier, I couldn't see any mistakes either. Not blatantly, anyway. I'm sure there are some, but, you know, it all looked okay. Yeah, I did do a stream earlier this afternoon, so, before Mr. Amazon Man came with the camera. Because, of course, we all know Mr. Amazon Man will come when Mr. Amazon Man cometh. And when you really want it, he comes at 10 o'clock at night. When you don't need it that desperately, he comes at 8 o'clock in the morning. So... I was prepared for the eventualities of the day. I don't have OCD. I know a man who does, who says he doesn't, but oh darling, if you could see what's just over there, you would know how un-OCD I truly am. I really ought to do something with my shit pile. It's getting overly out of hand. It's taken up a quarter of my sitting room at the moment, so I really do need to do something with it. But no, it was just the way that everything had finished, and I'd tied up the bobbins. Yeah, just believe me, it's a quarter of my sitting room. But and I will eventually, probably when I have time off in December. There is no food type stuff in it, so it's not like, you know, there's rats and mice. So. I definitely don't have any of those. That's one of the few things I definitely know I don't have. Or at least, rather, I don't have them in the house, and certainly not as a result of the things to do pile. So yeah, not in the house. Probably some in the garden, but then there's probably some in everyone's garden, to be honest. What was it? The quote was, you're never more than a metre away from a rat in this country, so there must be some in the garden. Although they'd probably be drowned by now, because it's a bit, you know, way out there again. I like mice, actually. Not necessarily in the house, destroying anything, but they don't really destroy a lot. But I like mice. I used to have mice as a kid. I used to keep mice. I once heroically saved a little mouse. He was a wild mouse. And my gran and I went to see one of her friends, and friend's cat was playing with something in the garden, and I wasn't that old. I was probably only about 8 or 9, and Granny, what's that cat doing? He's playing with something. So I went and had a look, and he had a mouse, and it was alive. So I grabbed the cat, I grabbed the mouse. I took the mouse to one end of the garden and carefully put him down. Walked the cat to the furthest corner of the other end of the garden and flung the cat. So the mouse had plenty of opportunity to escape. I tried to save another little mouse. It was not so successful. It was not my fault, but it was not so successful. So I found one of my dogs, former dog, caught a mouse. And I got it off her. And the mouse obviously was very scared. And so I put it in my hands and I was trying to take it somewhere quieter and get the dog away. And the mouse leapt out of my hand straight into something in the garden that had some water in it. Well, mice aren't very big. And it landed in the water, and obviously it was hyperventilating and panicking, and it inhaled a load of water. And that was the end of that. And I was very upset because I was trying to save it, and well, I felt like I killed it, but I know I didn't. I do know I didn't, but to be honest, if I found I had a mouse in the house, I'll probably let it be. I don't really... It's only one. If I had a lot of mice in the house, yeah, that's probably not quite so good. I'd probably feed the bloody thing if I had one. I'd encourage it. That'll be me. I've got a friend who doesn't like cats. No, and I'm the same. I will pick up a random wild mouse, and I am, as I did, and not even think twice. If I see a rat, that thing needs to go. Naughty Celt, do you have part of the same justification as I do, which is, I still haven't forgiven them for the bubonic plague? I've got a real anti-rat thing, and I used to live in London, the edge of London, and there's a station called Ickenham on the Metropolitan line, and not long after just before they proper revamped it, but just after they'd slightly revamped it, I was sitting at that station, waiting to go home. And I noticed almost like glitter, kind of little reflective glittery type things under the platform opposite. By the way, if you've got a real phobia of rats, this is not going to help. Anyway, how do I put it gently? And then when the train came the other way, because of course they always came. It's not just me, oh hallelujah. But I'm sitting at this thing and the train came the other way. And as it pulled in, and obviously it's got headlights, it lit up. Because instead of having like a solid platform, it had like a raised bed platform. They didn't suffer from flooding or anything, so I don't know why. But as the lights came in, it became really apparent all the little glittery kind of things, I thought it was rubbish, were rats' eyes. And then there was the thought, I bet they're underneath mine too. Yeah, I never quite enjoyed going via train on that station. I never really wanted to wait ever again. I was not happy. It was not my happy place. Let's have a look. I need 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I need one more pair to go in a stick. So, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad it's not me. Oh, I'm so glad. And I mean, it's a little mean. I mean, none of the rats alive were actually responsible for the bubonic plague, but I'm so glad it's not just me. everyone always made out I was being totally irrational. I don't care if I'm irrational. It's not just me. I'm so happy. Oh, dear me. I've never been so happy to be, to hear someone else say that someone else hate rats for the same reason I do. I remember my dad moaning because he thought there was something in the garden. And he didn't know what it was. He thought they were rabbits. And I was like, really? You've got too many foxes for that, Dad. Because my dad had foxes that used to come and visit him. And I kind of looked at him, looked at next door's garden and went, bet it's rats. Oh, no, it won't be rats. Oh, no. It was rats. And so it was that kind of, yeah. You know how, like, as humans, you kind of have an innate fear of fire and creepy crawlies and snakes, and I've always never been keen on rats. Now, I wasn't, it's not like the spider, mind you, I don't do it with spiders either, but you know how, like, some women scream because there's a spider in the house, and, basically you've got to napalm it or get some manly bloke to come and rescue the spider and either kill it or chuck it, choice is yours, but get it out of the house kind of thing. I am not that scared of rats, but they can keep away from me. But someone I knew, let's be more accurate, someone I knew, turned out they had a pet rat. And they were like, oh, he's ever so nice. It's a rat. And of course, at school, I think what really set me off was, at school, yeah, they don't, let's put it this way, they don't rush to me either, so, don't worry. But at school, age, not a lot. We did the, Great Fire of London, bubonic plague stuff. So I was distinctly aware that it was the rats. And not wishing to blame them too much, but it was the rats. And so I knew from a childhood that rats had the potential to transmit diseases to humans. And, well, I mean, technically a lot of animals do. But yeah, well, I mean, frankly, rats are the reason that, Trump's a bit weird, maybe, and rats are the reason that interest rates are high, and rats are the reason that the weather's bad, I'm happy to blame them for everything. It's just, the problem is, as I say, about age, I know it must be 7 or 8, we did do the, bubonic plague, killed loads of people, went to the local church, because the church that was at the end of my high street has a box in it. And it was my high street when I lived there, obviously I don't live there now, but you can actually Google it, find it, and there is a sort of picture of the box. But there is a box in the middle of the church, and it's this kind of almost skanky looking box. It's an alright box, but it just sits there. Nothing ever happens with it. No one touches it. No one does anything in it. But it tells a story. The box is made back, obviously when, Great Fire of London and bubonic plague was a thing. Because the church has been there a really long time. And the box is kind of divided up into little squares, just because it's bits of wood held together by raw iron kind of mesh, for want of a better word. It's, we're kind of talking, half-inch strips of iron making a lattice, so it's quite substantial. Anyway, it is quite a big chest, I need to point out. You could put quite a few people in it if you needed to. Anyway, that was not the purpose of the box. But across the box, from right to left, starts off 1 or 2 nails in a square. A few more nails in the next square. These nails represented people dying from the bubonic plague. And I found it fascinating because obviously it made the history a bit more real. It showed, here was an object that I can actually touch. It's not behind a glass shelf. It's not, it's not protected and, ooh, one must not touch. It was a box you can go up and, do anything you like to it. You can sit on it if you really want to. Because it is quite a sturdy box. But it told the story and it made that whole kind of rat thing really real to me, that these people had died because of rats, right? And that box has gently lived in my mind ever since I was a kid. Well, ever since I got told why there were nails in a square in the box. And a couple of the squares really are very, very crowded. And it is devastating to think that, various women, children, fathers, brothers, mothers, the whole shebang, all died because of rats. Now, obviously, the Great Fire of London, we were in very much outer London, so in that terms, the Great Fire of London would not have reached the church, and did not. But, if you read the book Old St. Paul's, it's not a book I've personally read, but it's a book I've had read to me. It was one of the few things my mother read to me. It actually talks, kind of, in part, is about this part of history, and the fact that St. Paul's got a little bit toasty warm. And so it is, to me, it is kind of it's almost personal. It's not personal, because clearly it's not. Sorry, I'm just checking what I'm doing. I'm just making sure I'm doing the right thing. So, the whole rat thing really did kind of live in my mind. And so, as a result, no, I was right. As a result, I am not a fan of rats. Yeah, I am very much aware that these are not the rats that did it. So, it's a bit like, a bit of form of racism in a way. You can't blame all rats for the actions of a few minority back in the day. Yeah, watch me. But I think the problem is that, for example, dogs can catch COVID from humans, which is pretty sad. But there are not many. Well, yeah, I'll join you as enemy number 2. That's fine. I'm cool with that. I will. I do not foresee it. It's not like it's going to change my life forever. That I will never need to be friend of rat. That's for sure. And I am a big animal lover. I really am. But yeah, not rats. And to be honest, snakes. Not keen on snakes. I don't hate snakes. I haven't. I don't hold. Unlike the rats, I won't say hold the Garden of Eden against them, kind of thing. At the same time, mainly because all I can think of now is David Tennant. But I'm not a big fan of the creepy crawly things. So I wouldn't invite a snake into my house particularly. I wouldn't go out of my way necessarily to rescue one. Same with beetles, and I don't hate them, but can you not? Can you do that somewhere else? But rats, no, rats, no, I can't be doing rats. Rats are, animal hated number 1, I'm afraid. Sorry to rat owners. And I do realise that the domesticated rat is very well cared for and clean, but it's a rat. So there are people out there who hate all dogs for the same kind of. But I once had a dog. Yeah, well, my dog isn't that dog. But sorry, but I just can't rat. I just can't do the rat thing. And believe me, Naughty Girl, I am so happy that someone has exactly the same reason as to why they're horrible. Oh no. Oh no. Did you burn your house down and move? I mean, it's them or us, frankly, but I mean, in the house. Oh no. Oh no. It's quite unusual to have rats indoors, to be fair. Although around here it's probably less surprising due to the amount of flooding. It is to the death, yeah, me or it. And I wholly support you in your actions. I'm cheering you on. No. I have a co-worker, the one that pings my phone a lot. He has a rat problem. And, they get in his roof, and then he can hear them. And he lives in a terrace house, and basically they're not getting in through his property, but the man has spent so much money in the time that I've known him trying to block and terminate said rat problem. I dread to think he must have spent more on that than I ever spent on my car, including buying it. He has spent an absolute fortune. He's had professionals in, he's done it. He had more success doing it himself because he could do it, you know, he would hear something and he could go and look and, you know, find the droppings and find the holes and fill them up and deal with them almost on a one by one as is basis. But they're coming in from next door and kind of from next door. Oh, well, they're not mine. Well, yeah, but they're coming in from your side, love. So they may not be yours. They may be coming in from someone further down the road. But the truth of the matter is, they are your rats. And this is not looking right. Because you come out of there. You come out there. And I need to... That's why that didn't look right. This does not feel right. Rewind. It's because it's not. So, you come from there. You are a pointless pin of pointlessness. You need to go under here. You now come from the middle. So yeah, poor bloke. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a friend who lives very close to my site where I work, and she had a lot of problems with rats. I mean, a lot of problems with rats. Kind of a bit like Ickenham Station, that, you know, at night you could look out into her garden and see a forest of rat eyes. And, you know, she was slightly more tolerable to rat than I was, but she still didn't want them in her garden. And she did pay for them to be, you know, dealt with by the council, and didn't really make any difference. But part of it was because she kept rabbits and guinea pigs, and apparently rabbits and guinea pigs tend to go together. And what was happening with her house, in her garden, was that underneath the rabbit hutch, which was raised off the ground, but was on some paving slabs, the rats were burying underneath the paving slabs. So, you know, one day you'd be walking along and it would almost fall through the floor, you know, disappear under your foot, and you'd be like, what the And the answer was Mr. Rat had been digging a tunnel underneath. And yeah, she had a lot of problem with rats, she did. And again, a lot of it was the decking that a neighbour had, because decking is a great place for them to hide. But then she also had decking out the front of her house, and it was like, oh, well, you probably got them in there too, you just haven't noticed. Especially as there's a hole in it. So yeah. I know there are rats on site. I know that. I've seen them. But there are also 50 billion bunnies on site. And I mean like 50 billion. If you're in there in the summer and you work late, you cannot drive outside. Well, you can, but you have to drive so incredibly carefully because the bunnies come out. And it's like Watership Down. They're friggin' everywhere. And they're quite kind of screw you. They sit in the middle of the road. You know, I'm talking the road is literally full of rabbit. And they just sit there and you're kind of going, vroom, and they sit there going, what are you going to do about it? Because, of course, they've all got myxomatosis. Very much like Watership Down. And so, rather than treat it, which is what they could have done, they don't. Every so often, they get people in to shoot them. Which is disappointing. Because, well, I mean, they do have to cull the numbers, because, frankly, there are seriously serious amounts of rabbit. But, it just, seriously, you could treat them so at least they're healthy. But that would cost money, Liz. Lord knows, we don't want to be doing that. We've also got a fox on site. We've got a cat on site. Not deliberately, but we've got foxes and cats on site. I'm not sure what I saw one day. If I didn't know better, I would say I saw a puma on site at one point. Thing was huge. And there's no way that was a standard house cat. It was like the size of a Labrador. Wasn't quite that big, but it was, you know, but it wasn't a dog. And, because if it was a dog, I'd have caught it. But, it was a big thing. Rory, do you mind not kicking me in the butt? Thank you. So, yeah, during the pandemic, rabbits are very destructive. Yeah. Myxomatosis is a very horrific way for a rabbit to die. I mean, you know, would I catch a rabbit and cuddle it? Yeah, actually, probably I would. During the pandemic, so 2020, we're all sent home, the weather's glorious, right? I turn into Dr. Dolittle because, and I've got a bit of a video of it, but, well, sort of, I have a couple of pictures and a bit of a video, but it's a very poor video. My house has a field behind it. I am part of a road. If you look out the front of my house, to the right there is the old farmhouse and the two other houses in my road, right? It's a very small road, there's only two other houses. Now, one day during the pandemic, on my little cameras, because there's bugger all to what to do and, you know, everyone was having colds and things, I spotted a pair of ducks. And they come out of the farmhouse and they're having a bit of a wander around the road. Now, there is pond, lake. It's a bit big to call it a pond. So let's go with lake, but it's, you know, they do have a boat to get to the middle. It is significantly big that you do need a small dinghy thing to get to the middle. And there are ducks, and there's a stork that stays there. There are geese. There, you know, and many, I'm sure, other water-loving animals. Anyway, certainly lots of dragonflies. But these two ducks came for a bit of a wander, and they kind of looked at my garden and kind of went, "It's a garden," and went down the other end of my garden. There are cars this end. This is a bit boring. And they then wandered off. Which is fine, you know. This is a thing that's allowed to happen. So, a little while later, I won't say tidying up, but I was moving some stuff upstairs. And out through the back window, I spotted the same two ducks that had gone up out of our road, round a couple of houses, down behind the houses to the left of me, and were now walking across the back of the field behind my house. Because the lake pond thing is kind of diagonally up and left from my garden. And they were going the long way. And with little duck legs, this was a friggin', you know, hobbit hike. It was, you know, Lord of the Rings would be proud, right? And I named them there and then because one was kind of waddling out front. Now, I'm no duck expert, but I was, you know, I named them and they were waddling out front. And one was lagging behind a bit, kind of, and it was really, so I named them Bert and Gracie, as in a very old couple who have lived together for far too long. And it was like they'd gone shopping, and she was like, "Bert, I've told you 100 times, will you stop dawdling?" Because it would turn around and it would kind of give him a glare, and he'd speed up a little bit, and she'd look away and it would kind of go back to plodding, right? So I nicknamed them Bert and Gracie, and I didn't think I'd see them again. A couple of weeks later, I heard something out in my front garden. Oop, ads. It says soon. Are you doing the ads? It says ads starting soon. Oh, whatever. Wait for after the ads. Come on, are you doing ads or not? Oh, there they go. No, it's thinking about it. It says it's doing ads. There they go. It took its time. Yep, so there was me, she says, hoping you're all back now. And I heard something in my front garden. I looked out the window. It was Bert and Gracie. Now, I did not know the gender of my ducks. What I will tell you is there was a white one and a mallard one, right? Now, not all mallard ones are male, but he generally, if they've got the bluey head, they're male. Apparently you actually tell by whether their tails are curly or not. Anyway, I put out a bit of bird food for them because, seed, it's not specifically bird-orientated seed. So I threw them a bit of seed and they were very grateful. And then, because it was stupidly hot and they came again, I started putting out a little bit of water because although it's not really that far from here to the lake, as the crow flies, when you've got little tiny 1-inch duck legs, it is kind of a long walk, and it was really, really hot. So I used to put in the shade a little tub of water for them to have a drink, and it was like Bert and Gracie found a tea shop, and they came a couple of times every day. A few days they came 4 or 5 times, but mostly they came a couple of times a day. To the point, all the people I had duck cam, because I wanted to keep an eye out for when they were there, because I'd go and say hello, and they reacted to my voice, which became a little bit of a problem when one of my dogs she'd been a bit ill and I needed to take her to the vet. And I got notification on duck cam that that Bert and Gracie had arrived. And they're obviously slightly miffed that I had not welcomed them for the day again. And as I got home, they were still there. And they started running towards the dog. And I'm like, no, this is not going to happen. So I managed to get the dog, because the back dog gate was fortunately open. I put the dog in the back garden, said hello to the ducks, went inside, let the dog in, fed the ducks. But the ducks came every day for months. To the point they were beginning to really trust me. And they are wild ducks. They are not domesticated, they're not someone's pet duck. They are ducks that have chosen to live on the lake. And at this point, they were wild ducks who were choosing to visit me every day. Now, and then it kind of started to spread a bit. So instead of just having ducks visit me, then there were rabbits, then there were hedgehogs, then there was the fox. Unfortunately, foxes eat all of the above. And one day, Bert looked a little... They didn't come for a day, and I was a little bit concerned. A couple of days, and I was a little bit concerned because, it was now out of habit for them. And I did wander around the back, because I can't wander through her garden. Some people can. She's given people permission to go through the garden. I've not asked. I'm not pushy, so I haven't. So I went the long way around. And I went round to the lake just to check that they were okay, and there they were. And I kind of went, hello, Bert, Gracie, how are you? And they were kind of like, quack, quack, quack. And I kind of went, I've missed you. I'm just glad checking you're all right, and wandered off. I didn't make a big fuss of it, didn't feed them, and went back to doing, kind of what I do best. Anyway, next kind of normal morning, there were Bert and Gracie in my garden. They'd come to see me, but Bert was definitely looking a little second-hand. And maybe he'd just, plucked a few too many feathers, whatever. Anyway, I didn't think too much of it. Because Gracie was very much still in the bossy mood. She used to pick on him. She was terrible. Anyway, it's a bit like Rory and Amy. Amy constantly tells Rory off. And funnily enough, a lady who came to visit my neighbours, I was out the front talking to ducks, and my neighbour went, oh, these ducks come and visit her all the time, because they used to watch from their house, obviously pandemic, so they used to watch from their house me talking to the ducks. And the lady kind of came over and peered over, and I went, I've named them Bert and Gracie, but I've no idea. And she went, oh yeah. And I went, do you want to know the weirdest thing? They had the same tails, now one's curly, one's not. And she went, ducks change gender. I never knew that. I knew blackbirds could change gender. Never knew ducks did. And do you know the most freaky part? When they started, they were both boys, so calling them Bert and Gracie was a little bit rude. Gracie turned into a girl. I got it right. I was right. It was freaky. Anyway, the week my dog had to go to the vet for the final trip, which was very dramatic for me because the vet had given her 2 weeks to live. We were doing something at work that meant that I really didn't have time for this kind of crap, and because I was busy building servers and doing strange things, and I promised the dog that once go live had happened, which was due, I think it was the Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, screw work, I would spend time with her in the garden, making her last days. She wasn't specifically in a lot of pain. She found it very difficult to walk, but it didn't hurt, if you know what I mean. She just found it difficult to walk. And the day we went live, she woke up in the morning and went, "Today's the day, please." So there was a less than professional conversation with my boss, which I do apologise for to an extent, but sorry. I live with the dog, I don't live with my boss, so I only have so many hours of the week which is boss orientated. The rest are dog orientated, therefore the dog wins. So I took the dog to the vet, we did the deed, we came back, the servers were now live. Anyway, the next day, neighbour managed to run over one of the hedgehogs. Felt a little bit distraught because, well, I really like hedgehogs, and so that was, you know, a bit upsetting. And then Bert and Gracie didn't come again. And on Facebook, next morning, one of the foxes has had the duck on the pond. Now, there are technically some other ponds around here. And I kind of went, "Which pond?" And I didn't get a response. And the reason I didn't get a response is because my neighbour told the woman, "Do not answer that. Do not answer that." My neighbour had to break it to me that Bert had been eaten by Mr. Fox. I was not happy. Definitely not happy, because those ducks, I cannot express how much joy having a pair of wild ducks choose to come and visit you, or any wild animal, to be honest, but it brought me so much deep joy to see them every time. And now they were gone, and I felt partly responsible, because obviously Mr. Fox had found them because they kept coming to visit my garden. There would have been smells. There would have been the smell to follow her back to the ducks. So I felt, I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty sure the foxes knew where the ducks were, because there are foxes in the field behind and you can hear them screaming and doing what foxes do. So, but at the same time, I felt really guilty that Bert was no more, because Bert was really quite nice, but he didn't quite eat out of my hand. But if I put a handful of birdseed in my hand towards him and trickled it off my fingers, he would almost nibble the end of my fingers, picking up some of the seeds. So he was a wild bird who trusted me enough, and I kind of I was a conspiracy part of his demise. So it was not a good week for me. A lot of my little friends kind of didn't want to come anymore because the foxes had been. And the fox was a really glorious fox. I mean, don't get me wrong, he wasn't a mangy looking thing. It really was a very majestic fox. But at the same time, you ate Bert. They do bad things. They raid bins, and my dad used to feed foxes. My dad was, oh Jesus, I'm nearly as bad as my dad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My dad used to get foxes in the garden, and obviously foxes can carry things that transmit to dogs, such as fleas and various other things. So my dad went to the vet and got things to treat the foxes, and he did. He put out sausages every night for the foxes, to the point that there was like a procession of foxes turning up for the nightly sausage. And everyone else around's kind of going, "There's foxes everywhere and they're raiding the bins." And my dad's feeding them and encouraging them. I didn't want to do that, so I did not deliberately put anything out for the fox. But I did notice on the cams that Foxy had been around. I was quite grateful that Foxy did not eat anything on camera, because that would have been pretty distressing. But obviously I could see all the little rabbits, I could see Mr. Foxy sniffing around, and yeah. But yeah, had to eat Bert. Really? You just had to eat Bert. I was so upset. And I missed that part of the pandemic. I missed the part where nature came out. I went out in the garden once, and, you know, like in days of old, women would go, "Oh, I feel faint." And, you know, be all kind of pathetic. Well, I'm not kind of one of those kind of girls. I'm more stub the toe, swear a lot, you know. But I was out in the garden. The dogs had kind of wandered in. I was just, because it was a nice day, I was out in the garden. And I was taking a bit of a break, trying not to, you know, maybe plot death of co-workers or something. And I wasn't lace making at the time, but but picture this. I walk out into my garden. Now, my garden's wide but short. But I've got a field behind it, so it feels bigger, even though there's a fence in the middle. Because at least there are no neighbours and kids screaming. And yes, one of the houses in the road technically has a kid, but he's at university. Yeah, so it's kind of acceptable kid. So there are no screaming children. There is Mrs. Barky Dog, who, yeah, don't know whether we want to shoot her or the dog, but Mrs. Barky Dog, she does, now, as far as we know, she is a nurse and she does shift work, so we do have an element of sympathy. But she seems to have a doggy door. And because people are perfectly at liberty to go walk in the field behind the house, they do. So her dogs bark at each and every stinking one of them. And even when she's there, she doesn't tell them to shut up. Now, most dog owners, like me and my neighbour, tell our dogs to shut up for excessive barking. It's kind of like, we know it's so-and-so, he's allowed to be here. You know, it is the, yes, we appreciate you're doing your job, but we recognise this person is not a threat, shut up now, right? She doesn't do any of that. She doesn't call them in. But what you do get is, "Bailey, Bailey, 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 Bailey," for like 45 minutes, because stupid little slipper-sized thing has fucked off out of her garden and is now running round the field and doesn't want to come back to her house for some reason. And so Bailey is... So hence, we're not sure whether we want to do her or the dog, but I think mainly her, but it's just utterly frustrating, right? And whether we, you know, because she doesn't do anything about it, but because they've got doggy door, they can go out when she's not there, so even, as I say, when she's there, it doesn't really make a lot of difference, but you can sit there and hear 8 hours of barking. And, well, in my old house, if you sat in my garden, you would have and tried to have a conversation. It was a bit like having a conversation in a club. You kind of had to lean in and spit in each other's ears to be heard, because it backed onto a major road. And again, the garden was really, really short. So as a result, it was not good. And we really could do with stealing a few more pins out of the back. But here, you whisper because you feel embarrassed that people can hear you. Because, I mean, during the pandemic, obviously the doors were open because it was stinkingly hot. And I recorded basically the silence. It sounds like a tropical rainforest because there are so many birds out there. Cheepity, cheepity, cheep. You never heard birds in the old house. All you ever heard was cars, lorries and people, right? So, although this is not necessarily hugely less dense, there is wildlife behind me, which I liked, which was why I bought the house. It was a key. Well, I got out my car and I could hear my own brain cells, and it was kind of like, my God, that's what they sound like. So, hence, I bought the house. Let me work to the other side. One, two, three, 4, 5. That's because you have not gone away. That's why. Right. And so here you can hear the motorway. You can hear the M5 to be accurate. But it sounds more like a waterfall. All you hear is kind of a shh. You can't hear the individual cars. So it's quite pleasant. On a lovely, blissful, sunny day, I can go and sit on a chair and lie back on my kind of reclining chair that I bought in the garden, stare at the clouds, listen to the birds, and this kind of waterfall in the background. It really is very pleasant. So my neighbour and I, who have dogs, we like the quiet, and so we are very encouraging of our animals to keep the quiet where at all possible. And I mean, occasionally I hear her dog, occasionally she hears my dogs, but it is occasional, usually followed by shut up, right? Not with Mrs. Barky Dog. And Mrs. Barky Dog also has a cesspit, which gets cleaned out every so often. And of course the lorry to clean said cesspit comes parks right behind our houses and is there for a considerable period of time. She must shit for England is all I can say. But having lived with a cesspit, I do not remember them being cleaned out quite that much. It must be either very, very small or she shits for England, because she seems to live alone. But we appreciate the quiet, but we do have this wildlife. Anyway, I was out in the garden. Now, I have seen deer. There are deer who frequent going to the lake stroke pond to drink, especially in the summer when it's warm. Yeah, you're not gonna have rats with lurchers, that's for sure. But I was out in my garden, and I was looking out over the field, and generally just staring into space, appreciating some bird chirpings and all the rest of it. I'm actually beginning to be able to recognise bird song. It's frightening, and I have never audibly gasped in my life, before or since. What I hadn't... Now, I've seen a few deer. I think I've seen 4. There's quite a few squirrels. A lot of squirrels. I have 3 robins who live in my garden and tolerate each other. And then there's a 4th one who's not tolerated by the other 3. But he still comes. I have up to 5 great spotted woodpeckers. There's a pair of green ones. There are pheasants. There's a buzzard. We've got them all, right? And it's been really quite nice because I quite like looking at, wild things. And I like it when they come to my garden. So I'm standing in my garden, enjoying the birds, cheep, 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 cheep. And I audibly gasped because suddenly, even though I was looking, I hadn't seen them. Because, of course, well, the whole point of deer is that they merge with the fauna and flora. And they had. And they took off right next to my fence. So they'd been within half a metre of me. And the big ones are really a lot bigger than, people sometimes give them credit for. And it must have been 8 or 9 of them stampede off. And I was like, oh! I've never felt so weak and useless in my life. But it was just, oh! It was kind of like, was that me? Did I really say that? Yeah, I did. It was me. I really, I almost needed like the fluffy white dress and a lace hanky. Yeah, it was kind of scary. It was kind of like, oh my God, I've never sounded so girly in my life. Please help. Send help. I felt girly. My garden's, I don't know how wide it is. It's not very long. I mean, slightly longer than my old garden, but not a lot. But it is way wider. It's got to be at least 2 or 3 times the sort of width. So I have, lengthwise, I've got a really good chuck the ball for the dog kind of length of garden. Whereas in old house, I did not. I did not have, pretty much you couldn't chuck it with it bouncing off the fence. So, whereas here, I cannot throw out the length of the width of my garden. Not a tennis ball. Probably could if I tried really hard with something a bit more solid, but I'd have to try really hard. And I don't want it to bounce off the fence because that'll be my neighbour's fence. They put up a new fence and then they had to put up another new fence because they hated the one that they've got because it was tango orange and then it warped, so they got rid of it. Now I need to check. Yep, you are part of the problem. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, I try not to bounce it off my neighbour's fence because I like my neighbours, but I love seeing the wildlife. It's one of the, when I was a kid, I did do some bird spotting in the garden kind of thing and saw fuck all of nothing. It was one of those, record the number of different birds you see in your garden and report, send your details in, kind of moments. But what are you doing? It's right, dog making strange noises. Miss? Mm-hmm. Yes. You're acting like you've been eating something, but I know better. So yeah, I love this garden and I do love this house because it's brighter, lighter, quieter, and I never realised just how depressing my old house was until I wasn't living in it anymore. And I found joy again, which was, frankly, a good thing. So. Time is it? 9:15. Lengthen you a little bit. Twisty. Do that before I forget. Go back a step. That's right. Yes. Oh look, ads again in 2.5 minutes. Sometimes they come round so quick. You have no point. That's why you're useless. One of the worst things about lace making, actually, is you buy, you know, monster pot pins, because you get through a few, after all. And if you don't buy the really, really expensive ones, 90% of them don't have a point on. And you're like, okay. Now, technically, you can buy some things and put a point on a pin and resharpen them and all of those kind of stuff. But when you've literally just bought them, you're kind of a bit disappointed that the pins don't actually have a point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. I can list all the birds that have been here. It's just not necessarily the actual count of birds, because we do get quite a lot of seagulls, but mainly because they live in Gloucester and they get bored of Gloucester and come over for a bit. But Gloucester's got a real seagull problem. But as a generic kind of moment, I do get. As I say, I get quite a lot of birds. I know I've heard a thrush, haven't seen it. I've got blackbirds and blue tits and you know, all the usual suspects in those lines. But I actually saw, I put up a bird feeder on my window, and once again, Liz, the, oh, poor little animal, one day was looking at the bird feeder because someone had arrived at it, and it was a disabled blue tit, and I do mean that in the way that you might think. It's apparently quite common. Oh look, ads. Yeah, having gulls do also seem to scare away other bird types, to be honest. But I get a lot of birds here, and as I said, I'm getting to the point where I can recognise some of the bird song, which is really a little off-putting. There is one animal, and I don't know whether it's bird or animal, that is currently lurking round the back of my house. Now, you'll have to forgive my impression of it, but it sounds like the wagon out of the original Ghostbusters program. It kind of goes, ooh-wah! Ooh-wah! And you're like, what the fuck is that? And it does it quite a lot. And it's really quite off-putting, especially when you're trying to, you know, use your brain cells. And maybe your brain cells aren't really having their best day. And you're kind of trying to concentrate because, you know, well, you're trying to work out what the hell's going on with something. And yeah, there's this kind of... That's not right. You should be in the mix. Something has gone wrong, Mr. Mannering. So let's go back so we can work out when and how that went wrong. Because I've just realised you did not... Oh look, barkety barkety barkety. As if by magic, one of the barky dogs appears. So you, because it's the dark one, but I know you should be in with the mix, and you are not. And so clearly, something somewhere has gone awry. We will backpedal to find out where I got that wrong, because you look like you are hanging out in the right place, which is not how things should be. So we need to go back in time until we can work out how it is that you got abandoned all the way over there. So undo that pin. See, I am being pedantic about making mistakes. I am trying so hard not to. The answer looks to be possibly very imminently here. So we need you back, and we go under you, over you, we need to unpin you. I'm really shit at seeing where the bobbins should be going. Here is where it went wrong. So, you and of course, without the extra thread on the bobbin, that would have gone unnoticed. It's not a good thing. But you also don't look right, because you come across and then violently change direction. Because actually, you are the dirt, you are the one. So, somewhere you two swapped. Let's undo you. Didn't like that. I take you out, you come over a couple, under a couple, and you two are the pair. So, you two across, so you are over, under, so you go under, over, that way, and then you go under, over. Now, does everybody behave? Now, Yes, that looks better. And you come here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I need one more. That's better. Yeah, I'd never have noticed that. You're working on a knot over 900 years old. Well, it had been buried in a nice potato field since 1868. Yes, it does sound good. It sounds fascinating. And to be honest, as I've said, because in a way your hobby and my hobby are cousins, because just because I stick my string round a stick and waft the string around, and you have thicker string and no bobbins, we do share potentially many close similarities. So I do find it interesting. So is it literally you have an old mat stroke piece of work that has been kind of fossilised, for want of a better word, in some mud in the potato field, and you are now recreating it, or you are trying to restore it, or please tell me about said thing from potato field from Ireland, because well I'm interested, because I mean I will do. And you see, one of the things that you do get, for example, in the field of tablet weaving and inkle loom weaving, is people going, oh, they found this tiny fragment and this is what we think it looks like, and someone's recreated it, and you get all this kind of hullabaloo, and it's actually quite interesting. So let me pull this up and then immediately close a load of magic windows because we don't know those. Searchy search. And there is the challenge, the challenge. So, yes, I accept the frigging cookies. Dear Lord. So, properties. There we go. So that people may see what you are referring to. This chalice seems to be the chalice. Doesn't seem to be not related, which is a little disturbing, but it does mention potato fields. Ah, okay. Does it show the back? Of course it friggin' doesn't. They found that in a potato field. Wow. You see, you look at something like that and someone spent a lot of time and effort making that round and putting all the intricate work on it and the little knobbles and the different bits. Vikings, you see, I like a good Viking. And, okay, if you wanted to truly critique, the handles aren't equal. But hey, and this isn't quite straight, but you do sit there and if you look, there are knots, Celtic knots, or at least it looks like it, on this band here going round, and certainly some shenanigans going on the kind of waistband of the chalice. But they do look to be kind of Celtic knot style markings if you squint in that picture. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, let's, as you say, let's have a look at images. That's a better one. Oh yes, you can see the Celtic-y knots round the... Doesn't look quite so shiny in that one. The other one almost looked too shiny. This one looks much more reasonable. But you can see the knots and things round there. And oh, there's a close up of the Celtic knots. Yay! Yeah, and what a beautiful piece of work. And okay, when there are plenty of pictures and sit still, dog, busy. That is a really glorious chalice, and it is a thing of beauty, and it's this one on the original page that I was looking at. This one looks fake. It looks like a recreation. Yeah. That one looks like a recreation, whereas this looks more authentic, frankly. I do hate it when you click on a picture and you click on the picture and it doesn't take you to the actual picture of what you were looking at. So yeah, this is much more. I didn't realise that the little handles had inlays and yeah, there is a lot of work that went into this. Whoever made this was really, put a lot of time and effort into it. And look at that. Look at that. That is a lot of work, dude. That is a lot of work that someone put into that. And, people just do not make things, well, unless they're weird like us, but as a generic whole, they do not make anything of the sort anymore. And I'm not going to say they couldn't make it, but it's almost like we don't get to see people making this level of detail because you do it all on a 3D printer and there is so much detail. And, if you think they didn't have computers and, complicated machinery, that's all hand done. And, it is fundamentally almost out of reach of most people to do today. But like I said the other day, is that the majority of fancy stuff was made by, it might, probably made by the blacksmith. But at the same time, it would have been, it was not made by the rich and the people with a lot of time to spare. It was made by people who needed to do it for their job. And we don't have that anymore. We do not have people who create in anything like the same way anymore. 99% of people have a desk job. Anyone who does more manual work is almost looked down upon. So whether it's farmers, builders, whatever, there is almost oh, you have a manual job, do you? Oh, how common. Cool. I can't wait to see what you make. I really can't. I'm looking forward to that, and you must show me. I insist. But it is I would love to see more people doing, let's call them hobbies, for want of a better word. I would love to see more of that living on and not being lost in time, frankly, like it is. Because it is sad that we are losing skills that, when I did karate, one of the guys who was teaching karate was a farrier. Now, I mean, they still have farriers, but it's not exactly something that comes up a career day, is it? And it just kind of... I'm sorry, you trained as what? You're a farrier. It's uncommon. And yet, back in the day, he would have been heralded a genius because, you know, everyone needed a farrier. And it's... I mean, the lady who owns the farm and the pond stroke lake thing, when she was little, our village and the village kind of next to it, which is quite a big village to be fair, kind of were joined. Well, they weren't joined, but you could ride directly on a horse between them, and the farriers was behind what is now the chip shop. And I'd love to have seen pictures of the village back then, because, you know, the place where I was talking about, you know, the village, I'll tell you, it's Ruislip. So Ruislip Church was the place, is the place with the box, right? And if you ever find yourself in Middlesex, feel free to go to St Martin's and go and look at the box in the middle of the church. But, you know, but there were quite a lot of pictures of Ruislip in the old days. There were pictures of how the high streets changed when the railroad came to Ruislip, kind of thing. And there are a lot of pictures of old, you know, hand-drawn stroke, early, you know, very early photographs of Ruislip. But it just, you know, I'm fascinated by... I mean, this is where I think, like I said the other day, how schools let students down, because they inevitably teach you about various events in history, and it's not wrong, because the events in history happened and they formed how things are today and all of those good things. But the truth of the matter is that learning your local history, learning and seeing how where you are was affected by the plague, by, you know, the Battle of Hastings, if you live down in that direction. All of those levels of aspects make it far more real. And if it's more real, kids will engage in it. Because frankly, you know, as I said, you know, quite often you find yourself going, but miss, I'm never going to need to know that. You know, no one really cares, you know. I mean, let's face it, we all know that Harold got shot in the eye in the Battle of Hastings. And what good does that do us? We don't need it, right? And funny enough, same co-worker that pings my phone, his school went and did a day trip to the Battle of the Hastings thing, because, well, it's down the road. And he then found out, months, year later or so, that arguably it is, you know, one of his relatives is depicted in the Battle of Hastings tapestry. Now, obviously, there's no label going, this is your thing. But it turns out that one of their relatives was, you know, right-hand man to Lord so-and-so or whatever, who is depicted, and there is a dude standing there, which is his right-hand man, therefore that must be the relative, right? And you're sitting there going, and I bet if you'd gone to the Bayeux Tapestry and you know, and all these kind of things, and you knew that your relative was in it, you'd have been far more attentive, you'd have written far better essay on it afterwards. You know, it's... I mean, for example, when I was a kid, and we went from 5th year to 6th form, my school sent me to Duxford and Meppel Outdoor Activity Training Centre. And I have, realistically, 3 memories of the 2 days that we were there. Going to Duxford, seeing lots of planes and going, yeah, planes, whatevs, right? going to the outdoor activity centre, and they had some bloke, no idea who he was, didn't, the name is not stuck in my head, who was a trampolinist, and he was kind of like, "Oh, ask me to do anything," and I said, "Do the splits." He went, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Show me," and I jumped up and down, did the splits while landing on the thing, so obviously you overextend. He went outside and threw up. I remember that. And he didn't do it, funnily enough. And then we were divided into 2 groups, and we went, each round our merry way to round a lake, and this really was proper lake. There was no doubt it was a lake or a pond. This was definitely a lake. And we went one way, and halfway across it was raining and thunder and lightning, and everyone's so scared. And I was with a teacher, because I was not the popular girl at school, and we raced round the lake like nothing else, because we just got on with it, and it was fine. And we kind of did that, got to the other side, and there aren't enough people to take the boats back. So you hadn't managed to divide everyone into a group. Well done. So I said, fine, I'll take it back. And I took a boat back by myself, in the thunder and the lightning, and I'm out in the middle of a frigging lake. I have a healthy fear of lightning. I was at a activity park. I don't remember which one it was, because I was quite young. And it had almost like ski lifts, but the kind of people carrying lifts that are like one up from a ski lift. So it has a base and a bit of a shell round it. The one behind me got struck by lightning, and I was on my own, and and it was a distinctly unpleasant experience for all. And there was, "Oh, are you all right?" And it's like, "No, not really. I feel a little bit," So that was not a pleasant experience for all. And so I was very much aware that, lightning is something that should not be messed with in a hurry. Let's leave it alone. Let's do that. And there was me out in the middle of the rain and the lightning, taking back the stupid boat. Canoe paddly thing. It was a bit bigger than a canoe, but large canoe thing. Kayak is probably the word I'm after. Anyway, yeah. So those were my memories of the whole weekend. About a year and a half later, my dad said something, and I kind of went, "What?" And he went, "Well, your granddad served at Zuxford." My granddad was singly the most loved adult in my entire life. Don't get me wrong, I loved my dad a lot. But I loved my granddad more than like a dog. I was devoted to my granddad. And my granddad had died when I was 13 or so. So, to find out that years later, I had been to somewhere he served, and he had worked, those planes had been real to him. He had possibly been in. He was possibly mentioned on the Wall of People, because there's a big wall of people at Duxford. And you didn't tell me? Yes, I think that's the thing for me is, when I did history at school, it seriously was Lives and Works for Dungby, and frankly, they couldn't have made it more boring if they tried. But the truth of it is again, because you're interested in the knot, but we as adults look at that and go, "That's a lot of work. Wow." And then understanding why it was, who it was made for, why they had it, what event, because clearly it wasn't just made as a, cup for use around the house. all of those kinds of things, is that you find yourself sitting there going, as an adult, history is interesting. It's like why adults watch Time Team. It was that kind of thing, is that you watch it because you can go to that place, you can see that. But as a kid, you can't pick to go to that place. You have to try and persuade your parents, and maybe they don't want to go. But as an adult, you can go, I want to do that. When I was looking at buying this house, there was one other house that I really was quite interested in. And you're going to understand this now. Opposite was a dig. Holy crap, how cool was that? It wouldn't have been as quiet because obviously people come to visit it, but I was up for living there. I'd have done that. That would have been a thing. I could have lived there. I could have enjoyed that. And so, yeah, I find it funny how things that if you tried to teach me as a child, I would not have been interested. An archaeological dig, yeah. You know, you owned kind of all the land around it, and then like there was this kind of fieldy bit that they kind of dug out in the middle and went, we're digging this bit, sorry, you can't have it, kind of thing. But yeah, it was, I'd have loved to have lived there. I mean, I'd have been there every day. I'd have kind of like, hello, it's me again, bought you some tea, can I watch? You know, yeah, I do find it weird how, as an adult, for example, one of the key things that I've noticed as an adult is, even crafting, if you try to learn lace making, knitting, crochet, embroidery, standard sewing, for Christ's sake, it was a chore. It was hard work. It took forever. It was weeks of making cat bath. It was horrendous. As an adult, a couple of hours. And it boils back down to the, you know, as a child, you're not doing a lot of it through choice. You are being told, thou shalt learn this crap. As an adult, maybe you do want to learn it, and now you are doing it because you want to. Because you want to, it's making more sense. Because you want to, you are, and you have more experience, you have more to draw upon. And I'm going to take some more pins out. So yeah, I'd have loved to have lived right next to an archaeological dig. I mean, I'm sure, you know, there are bound to be times that you'd argue with it, but never mind. looks a bit better. Now, I think we ought to check. Behind here. Yeah, I have not pushed down these pins yet, so I daren't pull out those just yet. Have I pulled those down? Yes, I have. So we can also take out some of these. Oh, sorry. No, thank you for telling me. You are my hero. Thank you. There you go. I am pulling out pins. It's really not that exciting. So, yes, I had not paid attention to that. I was busy looking at pins and wondering what I should pull out and what I should not. To release the beautifulness of what we've been up to. So yes, because I need to push all these pins down at some point along the edge. So yes. So let's zoom back out. Now I've got a big pile of pins. I think I'm going to have a bit of a bobbin sort out. So I'm going to push these all the way around here, because if I move all of you round and we look at some of you, you need to go with your friend. We'll need you later. You're with that one. You're with that one. And you're at the bottom. You lot get to be in here. And look like you are twisted. Like that. Let's push some of these pins down. Stab myself in the arm with the two that I put in the cushion and forgot about. Yeah, let's bring you round a little bit so that we can check. So. Around the corner. Let's continue down the line. You do not need to be pushed in. Let's get that far. Now, you are down there. You can kind of go around the corner. You can go around the corner like that. Then we shall get the next 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, you're 5. You get to go together. And you can also go around the corner, because we really do need a bit of space. And all of you now have to come around this way, because we need these ones at this end, and we don't really have the room. So let's pin you up a bit. So that you're held together and you won't tangle. I can slump you up a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I might as well keep you out because we're going to need you in a minute. That gives us a little more room. See, ideally, what I probably should do instead of working this way, is work this way. In fact, let's do that. So that means you are out the way, but then I need all of you. So we can always change halfway through. Let's do that. Change halfway through. So Twisty, keep you out the way for the minute. Tilt cushion a little bit. Last goner. And it's 10 o'clock, so we should make it. This goes fairly fast. And now I've got a big pile of pins. Oh well, work tomorrow. Sounds like the wind and the rain have started up again. Coke for the privilege. Oh dear. Eep. Sorry about that. I think my internet farted. So hopefully you may need to refresh. Okay, all good again. That's a good thing. Yeah. Sometimes you need to refresh. It depends on how well it does with it. It suddenly went beep. It's disconnected, and it's like, well, I didn't touch nothing. So I do have very crappy internet, that's for sure. My old house was worse. For years, and I mean literally years, every time it rained I lost the phone. And I'd call out BT and it'd be like, it's gone again. Oh well, if it turns out to be your fault, we'll charge you like 200 quid for it. Yeah, but it's never my fault. And they kept sending people, they kept fixing the same problem. And eventually a man said, well, of course it's going to do it, because you've got a join in the cable with no protection against it. So every time it rains, it gets a bit wet, gets a bit rusty, and then stops working. I think streaming is difficult to work out what the problem is. So initially when I was broadcasting, in the first couple of days that I was doing it, it was constantly saying it needed like nearly 6 megasecond to send the picture. But I haven't changed the resolution I've been streaming at, but now it says it's only 2.5 meg, and you're like, I wonder why it's different. But for it to keep up 2.5 meg is much more reasonable. I am supposed to have up to 20 meg, but I don't get that. I get about half that. So, but even so, it should be able to cope with 5.5 meg, but it doesn't seem to. It is. I mean, I have got a fairly good PC. Don't get me wrong. It cost me enough, but at the same time, I don't think it's. I think it's like everything. A little. If this bit's a bit bad and this bit's not so good, and that one's maybe not quite up to everything, none of them are necessarily wrong or impossible. But when put together, they don't work properly. And a bit like my cameras, I had perfectly good cameras, but none of them did better than 720. Well, but that looks blurry to most people because nearly everybody nowadays has 4K. Well, 720 multiplied up, Christ knows how many times to get to 4K, is gonna look blurry. And it's, I was reading about some of the other stuff, and there's a load of stuff all over the place about, faster internet. And, you at one point, turns out, I don't know how I slept through it, but, some places are in a position where if you cannot get 1 gig, you can apply for a grant that will help offset the cost of getting you a gig. Dude, I get 80/20 and I only get about half of that. I'd love a gig. Oh Christ, I'd leap at a gig. But it's, well, and I think actually more annoyingly for me is that BT, etc. will tell you that it's not available. Well, the girl who came to my door because she went to the wrong address, was adamant she could flip the switch. So, do you believe the girl who was standing there, who's been to the exchange and who's standing at your house and knows where it is and everything? Or do you believe someone in a desk who has no idea? But they won't give me 1 gig. I am so desperate. When 1 gig comes, I am leaping on that like a thing possessed. Because I'm tired of... I mean, I recently had to upgrade all of my network. Now, like everything, like I was saying about your PC, is that it may not have been your PC. It may have been a culmination of slightly less desirable options, all meeting in a perfect storm of not working so well. And my home network was exactly that. I've got a modern house. It was built in 2007. So, it's made out of straw and, it's not exactly lead painted and, lined with extra thick bricks or anything. It's made out of next to nothing and all the rest of it. But even though the Wi-Fi is 5 metres away, I was not getting a reliable Wi-Fi signal. And in fact, Windows 11 and my Wi-Fi hate each other. I mean, I have never seen so much hate for a Wi-Fi. So I got one of those networks over your Earth cable jobs. So I got a TP-Link wired network. And everything was great. But I was getting really poor connectivity. And it didn't seem to be my network. It seemed to be my internet. But in a fit of rage one day, as you do, I decided that I'd replace the TP-Link with a newer, shinier, it's better, it's more wonderful, you can stream 4K, blah-de-blah-de-blah, right? Well, multiple 4Ks was its own wording. So I got it. I plugged it in. My internet's been way more reliable since. To the point, I have a ping program that runs. And I would say I lost 10% of every packet trying to leave my network. I don't now. Most days, it's kind of zero. The other day, when it farted at the end of a stream, yeah, I lost everything for a good few hours. We've had a couple of power cuts. Life does seem to poop on my head a little bit. But in terms of my internet, I had problems. I couldn't watch streaming, and I don't really watch TV anymore. I keep paying for Sky, I don't know why. But I don't tend to watch my TV anymore. I tend to watch streaming media because I can stop it, restart it, go back, come back to it in 3 days' time, change my mind of what I'm watching, and I've already paid for it, so it's fine. Well, I had a job watching nearly everything you clicked on Netflix the first time would go, oh, there was a problem showing that. Try again. I would watch YouTube videos, buffering, buffer face, as the phrase goes. I had a lot of that. And I was getting distinctly annoyed with it. Don't get that anymore. I occasionally get it. But now, I don't think it's me. Now, I am confident it is not me. But the problem is with like all of these things, as I'm sure you are well aware, that it's never you. It's never their fault. It must be you until you can prove otherwise. And it does get a little bit tiring to constantly have to prove to someone that it is not you. It is not, it's not because you've got a crappy machine because you bought a really expensive one and it's brand new. And, it's not your network because this is still working. And at the same time, this is fine. So it's not that. And, all of these other things. And you're sitting there going, I should not have to fight so hard to prove that my internet is unreliable. Because my ISP must know that it's not. I mean, the other day, my internet was being a bit crappy. And I went to the service alerts page for my ISP. Now, there were no specific outages for my region, but they had pages, and I mean veritable large reams of work going on, issues and other stuff, and half of it was their core network. Well, so you're saying that it's not, there are no problems in my area, but that's not true, because your core, everything that you do is affected by it. So it does affect me. It's just not caused by my local exchange or whatever. It is caused by changes at your end. And I spent 5 or 6 hours with watching my ping, because I ping the gateway that I joined, so basically the other end of the connection for my ADSL. And then I pinged their DNS servers and Google's DNS servers, because obviously you'd think on their network you'd get to theirs, but maybe leaving their network could be an issue. I couldn't even reliably get to their DNS servers, let alone Google's and anybody else. And literally it was up, down, up, down, up, down. And you're like, I just want a connection that works, dude. I pay you money. Admittedly, I don't pay a huge amount of money. I think it's 35 quid a month. But can I just have an internet connection? I just want to, Well, at that point I was trying to do some work and I got booted out of a meeting, but it was, it becomes frustrating, because I actually pay for a business rate ADSL. So in theory, most ADSLs in the UK are shared 50-1. So when it says to you, you've got 80-20, yeah, between 50 of you. Which is why sometimes it feels really slow. It depends who got to the, who started the download first. Whereas I'm on a business one, which is 20-1. And chances are there aren't too many businesses around here, so hopefully I've got most of it to myself. But the phone cable seems to be pretty bad quality to the house. I assume it's due to the flooding, to be honest. Because flooding is a thing around here. That doesn't feel right, yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's kind of seen better days. And could do with being replaced, to be honest. But I am so looking forward to the day that they say that I can have fibre or something, 1 gig or whatever, how they do it. To be honest, I don't care how it gets to my house. I just want, Here's a question for you, Naughty Kelp. You may have seen that Amazon are releasing a new Kindle in 11 days. And one of the new Kindles that they are releasing is colour. Now, why is it that I want one? Why do I want one? Why do I feel this desperate want for a colour Kindle? I mean, it would be nice, but it's not just oh, that's nice. Oh, if mine breaks, maybe I'll buy one. No. It's I really want one. I really, really, really want one. I'm just going to move the pace a bit. It doesn't feel overly stable. That's better. So yeah, I desperately want a colour Kindle, and I can't overly explain why, but I want it. The precious. I want it. And I can't put any more explanation onto it other than I want it. Can't really afford it, because I've just blown, the same money on the camera, so I really don't have the money to spare. But I do want. The reason I say partly it's unlikely to be your computer is, for example, I'm looking at mine, and to stream at 1080p at 30 frames a second, I am using 0.1 of my CPU powered. Clearly not stressing it. So in theory, it shouldn't be your PC. I mean, you can stream from a phone, so if your phone can manage it, you'd like to think a PC would. Doesn't feel right. Partly because I picked it up. And I feel like I'm working at an angle because, well, I am. And of course that makes everything feel weird, so. That adds. Twisty, 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 twisty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty sure it's only supposed to be you. Let's have a look. Let's get there as well. Probably doesn't have the graphics card, yeah. As you say, it's probably the graphics card. Certainly for gaming. Streaming doesn't feel like it should be heavily graphics intensive. I mean, it's possible, you know, it's more graphically intensive than reading your email, but it doesn't feel like it should be the most intensive thing. Obviously gaming is, because gaming likes fancy cards. I have fancy card. But, by the way, 1080s are really old now. I've had this machine nearly a year now. It'll be a year in January-ish. I spent my bonus before I got it. I know it was bad of me, but technically I could afford it and then put the money back in my savings. So that's what I did. But yeah, this thing is, you know, Starship Enterprise kind of thing. It's got 64 gig of memory. It's got a 4090. It could fly the space shuttle in its spare time. The other one I've got in this house has a 1080 Ti in it, and I bought it 7 or 8 years ago. So I was due an upgrade for a PC. I'm old too, Nautical. I'm old too. But what I did do, part of the reason I bought this thing and threw a big bucket load of money at it was that, and I do this for a reason, I buy the best that is basically available when I'm buying a new machine, on the simple grounds that 5-6 years time, yes, it will be, you know, old hat, but chances are it will still do most things, say, not on high, you know, instead of playing everything on high settings like it does now, new stuff will come out. They'll have got used to having bigger, fatter, fancier, faster this, better that, whatever, but it will still play it. And that was true with my old machine, is that it's in the other room. It could play most of the things that I play, just on lower qualities. Some of them on low, I think, to be fair to it, but predominantly on medium, i.e. tolerable settings. Whereas this one has the best card that money can have, well, almost at the time. Although, if you ever want to scare yourself and feel better about maybe spending too much money on a computer, there is a website, and I found a single PC, not a server, not, you know, none of that, or a rack or anything like that, a single PC that came in a box not substantially bigger than the average PC. £32,000. Now, I will say to you that, you know, it came with a lot of kit. I mean, it came with a NAS box full of disk drives, and I mean full of disk drives. None of this crap that you buy off Amazon. It goes, oh, this will hold so many terabytes. Yep, but it's empty, right? You've got to put disks in it. No. This is a fully populated, you know, kind of many terabytes of disk space. And, you know, it came with like 5 graphics cards or whatever, and you're kind of going, yeah, I'm not going to spend that. That's kind of, no. If I was going to buy 30-something grand on something, I'd be having a new kitchen, or, you know, I'd be walking down the local car dealer going, I want a brand new car. I would not buy a PC with it that in 4 years is going to be kind of, well, I mean, it would still be awesome, but it will, but, you know, one of the big risks that we always take with our PCs is that round the corner, they may invent something that shatters life as we know it, and your PC is now redundant. And that in, you know, within a couple of years, you wouldn't use it as a doorstop. Well, so I'm not spending 32 grand on something that in a couple of years might turn into a doorstop. It's not, you know. Let's save that kind of money. You know, if you've got that to hand, do not be spending it on a PC. Just kind of, yeah, let's not do that. Couple of grand on a PC is a lot, but at least it might last a while, you know. I think this one cost me just over 3 grand. But yeah, it was, so I've always done because it's always better to buy as much as you can when you buy it, because upgrading it always costs more. Although she says I did actually replace the disk drive on this very quickly. Because I wanted a faster one. So I do have a very fast disk drive in this. Wasn't ridiculously expensive considering. I think it's 4 terabytes and does kind of 11 gig a second or something ridiculous. And, you know, obviously I can't download at that speed, but such as recording this, it's not going to bottleneck the recording of this. It's not even going to notice. It could do other things and still not notice. So, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next one. So, I do that. I've got a crap top that has a built-in graphics card and all the rest of it. I could probably stream off that if I wanted to. But it has a dodgy disk drive in it. Well, and that's always the other problem, isn't it? Is that, you know, even if, I mean, when I bought my crap top, I spent £150 on a crap top off Amazon, right? You know, I was under no illusion that this thing would be great. But realistically, I wanted it for browsing a bit of the internet, maybe streaming a few things. So again, it's not like it's holding it. So all it has to do is really show me a picture, mooching on the internet, and not a lot else. It almost held its own against my old PC, which I spent. My old PC, when I threw my money at it, was nearly £6,000 because Dell took a quarter. Well, one thing that is a problem, because my dad was really good with numbers. He was an accountant, for Christ's sake, but there were times when he was really quite dense about it, and I spent, you know, nearly £5,000 on a desktop. So Dell wanted nearly about £1,000 on top of that to give you the warranty for 4 years. And he was like, "Oh, but mine didn't cost anything like that. It was only this much." Yeah, because your base machine was a lot less, Dad. They charged like 30% of the machine for 4 years warranty on top of it. So if you buy a really expensive one, the amount to support it is stupidly expensive. And it kind of didn't sink in, but it has been, you know, so my last machine was ridiculously expensive, and they did have to come out and fix it at one point, so it was worth it. But they wouldn't let me extend it, which was pretty disappointing considering it's a desktop. I mean, I can understand with laptops because so much of it is proprietary, but you know, desktops, that's a real shame. So I don't know. It's so I bought this, as I say, in January, because I could, because I decided that I was getting a bit more back into gaming. I hadn't really done gaming for ages, and I was doing some stuff, and yeah, I decided that, you know, my old one was, as it was no longer supportable, the 1080 Ti was considered old now, so I upgraded. I don't regret it. I really don't. I'm quite happy with it. And I'm making good use of it, so it's not like it's sitting in the other room and I don't touch it. So, because that would be kind of insulting and wrong, to be in a position where you spend all that money and then it sits in the corner doing nothing and you're not getting your use out. I mean, this is on pretty much the whole time I'm awake. I get, you know, I come downstairs in the morning and almost the first thing I do is press the on button. Well, actually, I open the back door, then I press the on button because it's on the way back. So, yeah, it is on the whole time I'm awake. So, you know, I'm getting my money's worth out of it, which is kind of the important part of it, I guess. And as I say, I watch TV on it because I've got 32-inch monitor. I don't watch my big TV anymore. I don't watch live TV. So I mainly watch. I watch a streamer guy generally. Well, I don't really watch it because I'm working, but I have a stream on during the day, and it's a bit like listening to a radio show. So I do that, and then I watch somebody else sometimes in the evening. And of course, now I'm doing this, I'm not watching half of them as much because I'm too busy doing this. So, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Definitely not necessarily a bad thing. Well, you see, this is the thing. I could argue I no longer need a TV licence, and we all know what a palaver that can create. I'm sure you've been through that. They almost accuse you of lying constantly. Because when I moved out my old house, and I didn't move my licence, I bought this one and didn't renew the old one because I hadn't decided exactly when I was moving, and so I didn't know when I was doing it, but I wanted to put a licence in here so if I took my computer I could maybe watch live TV over the computer, because for some of iPlayer you need a TV licence. And the letters, the moment the old one ran out, we're going to send someone round, you need to pay your licence fee, you can't. I'm not there, dude. So no one is watching TV. You send the people. I have seen people knocking on that door, and they've got to be TV licence people. And there's been streams of them. Not that I watch that often, but there's been more than plenty, and they've all got to be TV licence people. And you're sitting there going, the reason there's no licence is because there's no one in it. Can you not? But they get really accusatory about you not having a licence, even if you don't have a TV. And so it's not like you're just watching streaming stuff. It's, but you must be lying. You must be lying to us. You must have a TV and be watching it. You can't possibly not. Yeah, that can work. But they do write you really quite offensive letters. They are really threatening about, how you must be wrong. You're a liar. You need this. Without this, you're breaking law. Have you considered that I'm actually not? I'm not actually breaking the law. I am not actually watching the TV. Have you seen what's on TV? The only thing that was worth watching on TV is Doctor Who. Seriously, no. And I think that's my problem. I begrudge paying my TV licence for 6 episodes of Doctor Who a year. Just doesn't feel quite right, Especially for what is it, 160 quid or something now? It's just excessive. And I know that the TV licence actually doesn't just pay for the TV, it pays for the BBC as a whole, and the BBC as a whole do good things. But then, like every business, fund it. If you want to run, the World Service Radio and all the rest of these things, fund it. But as you say, it is constant harassment of, you're breaking the law, we're going to catch you. Have you actually considered I'm not doing it? I mean, it's been a while. Yeah. Shall I tell you how bad it is? If I turned my TV on now, and my Skybox, which hasn't been turned on in a while, other than having to repair my Skybox, with the card and thing, because it times out after a while, I wouldn't get a signal because the bush out the front is blocking the satellite dish, and I haven't had it trimmed, or I haven't trimmed it both. You know, basically it needs trimming and it hasn't been done, so it wouldn't even work. I mean, you know, it's... Good on you. Because they are really quite rude and threatening, and if you were old and frail and you know, the more easily intimidated people in life, you'd end up buying a TV license for the TV you don't even have, you know. It's kind of like, what part of no was unclear, you know. It's... Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's package you up. Nearly at the corner, dude. Nearly at the corner. Just gonna package these up to make a bit more space. Pile. Seriously, dog? And that's something I think that doesn't make a lot of sense to UK people, is that we have to have a TV license to watch live TV, but that it is not incorporated into all the many payments we pay for bloody stuff, and you know, so paying your Sky, you know, 70 quid a month, whatever it is these days, doesn't cover it. You'd think it would be part of the price, but it's not. It... Yeah, they're just... There is nothing more disappointing than when you get a letter through the door that says, "The occupier." Nearly there. Very, very, very nearly there. 3 pins to go, and this is pin number 3, so 3. Two. 1. Ta-da! We finished our second triangle. And is it me, or did that really not take anything like as much time as the triangle that went before it, or even worse, the one before that? Well, one of the things that came up on one of the kind of things that I was reading, because I read a lot of things when I'm bored. In America, tampering with the post is a federal crime, which we don't have a differentiation between local, federal. It's just either legal or it's not. Anyway, being a federal crime basically means that the FBI potentially will come and get miffed at you for whatever it is that you have done that is a federal crime. Well, here's the thing. Tampering with post is a federal crime. Opening somebody else's post is a federal crime. And someone actually posted a bit like I'm sure your vets do the same. Their vet had written to their dog. Is it a federal crime to be opening post not addressed to yourself, because it's addressed to the dog, even though the dog can't friggin' read? Well, the answer is, technically, yes. And to your point, if it is addressed to the occupier, well, while I do occupy, I have a name. I have registered that I am the occupant with the local authority. So, if you had more than one brain cell, you would have had my name, and you would have been therefore able to address me as such. But you didn't, because you just basically wrote to a random bunch of addresses saying, hey, we're looking for houses in your area, or whatever the hell this crap is. And you didn't individually address it, because, well, that would take effort. And I'm sorry, but you know, I do feel that, like you say, is I am not called the occupier. I'm very clearly called Liz Kimber. So if you want me to open it, perhaps you should address it to me. And I'm a bit like that with my doorbell, because people in the road annoy the dogs. If you do not ring my doorbell, I do not know that you require human assistance. It's really not that difficult. Don't do the Amazon whisper knock where you don't actually touch the frigging door and expect me to know. I am not psychic. I am actually human. And so I'm sorry, but if you want me to be available to you to answer questions, to receive a package, you need to notify me. And traditionally, this is done through the use of a doorbell, for which I have a working doorbell. But if you are not choosing to utilise it, I'm assuming you don't need me, because, well, how would I know? So, how are we going to do this? How am I going to do this? Because you are tangled already. There we go, let's straighten you out a bit. I kind of would like to see both halves, because we've now done half a triangle. Well, I know what I was going to do. I was going to go in here, and I was going to that one and that one. Export as export. Now, with any luck, if I do... hasn't picked it up. Oh, well, I'll have to look at that later. Let me go have a quick look. Because I'm curious, because it did the first time. Always state of play. it's called state. Okay. File. Export as to state. There you go. Export. Replace. Yes. Whatever. Do. If I press the button now, it has noticed. Look. Done 2 bits now. Yay. One moment as I handle. That's harder than it sounds. Okay. Potential bot alert. Okay. But I kind of want to. I kind of want to take a picture of the whole half of a triangle, but it's a bit hard with, well, quite so many bobbins about, really, because it's hard to unmask enough to let free all the bobbins and the triangles underneath. And of course, for the next one, we're definitely not going to be able to do that. I've got a Ring doorbell. And because, well, I'm a geek, and occasionally it's out of juice, but then it's not got the lights on it, so it's really not that hard to tell when it's not working. Plus, you can hear it because the speaker for it's the other side of the wall, so if you don't hear it, it didn't happen, you know. Let's finish pushing these down, because that's the thing. We finished another triangle. I'm so pleased. Let me take a photo of that because, well, we'll want that. Now, the question comes. I said last time, oh, for God's sake, ads, really? Let's do this again then. You can't really see what I'm doing down there, can you? Let's do that. There you go. Just pushing all the pins down and leaving our little row of 3 pins for safety to help keep structure for the other side, because that worked very well last time. And I don't care if it's normal or not. I've never cared for normal. I like it, it works for me. Therefore we will do it again. And take out a few more pins. because then we can have a quick survey for mistakes, because this is when they show up. Actually, more accurately, they show up when you put a picture on the internet. But let's... Right. And then push those down a bit better with my finger and take you away. Great. There we go. Everything looks cool. So let's have a look. You know what? Unlike last time, where I immediately spotted a whole pile of things to whine about. Let's zoom in a bit. Hang on. And down a bit. And in a bit. Actually up a little bit. Trying to keep it centered so you can see most of it. Right, so I've zoomed in a bit, trying to give you something to see. So, unlike last time where we found some wonkier bits and a few bits of, ooh, that doesn't quite look what, you know, I actually think, I'm not going to say it's perfect, because, you know, that would be a bit conceited, but I don't actually see, despite looking, issues. Yes, I do. Finally found one. Hooray! Found one. I feel more human. It's the only one I have found. Oh no, there's another one. There's one there, and there's one there, and I didn't cross the two threads. But on a scale of noticeable, that's fine. So we have completed triangle number 2. Now we have piles of bobbins, and I did say it does look pretty good. I did say that we would turn the square, because I can remove, actually you can't see that now, can you? Dink. No, wrong button. That one. Actually you still can't see that. Let's move down towards me. That's as far as it goes. But you can see that I can pull the square out. I can pull out the block underneath. And I was gonna move it so I could move the square in the middle up and down. But we did so well with when it was on its side and a whole pile of other things. Excuse me, I want to wipe this because it always looks like I've got bad eczema or dandruff, because it's a dark blue thing and there always seems to be a ton of me or something on it. Now, let's try and work out how we're going to do the bobbins. We realistically want to flip them. Now this is not for the faint-hearted. So there we go, we have flipped those bobbins. And then problem is we also want the bobbins in the other order, because those are the bobbins we will need first. So what we actually want to do is unflip those a minute and scoop them round like this and like this and stop mating and like this and like this, and then we grab you this and we make a bit of a pile, and then we grab you, and then we finally grab you. We're going to see, we're going to have a big reveal. Watch this. I'll pull this pin out. Move that before I catapult pins everywhere. Watch this. Ta-da! Yay! Oh you're allowed to nitpick all you like, honey. Now, let me think about this. Ice pickup and the mitre in the pattern seems to have two parts, slightly bigger spacing. Is it me or an optical thing? These are all the same size. You've got to remember that there is shading here, which makes it look a little different. This square obviously is a rectangle, because it is. I mean, technically I could pull these pins out now, because, well, don't need to hold it, but it's good to hold it. The pins do put things off. So, for example, if I zoom back in horrendously and try and work out what the hell we're all looking at here, and come back up. If you look there, you can see quite clearly the L shape of the pins, and it does make it look wonky, even though it's not. And it's worse when the pins are up, because the pins are not dead straight. You are not looking directly down on them, so the pins can make it look like they're in the wrong place. It can make it look absolutely terrible, which is why, you know, being able to do this is so much better. We zoom in a bit more. No, that's maximum zoom. But if I look at each of these little squares, they all look to be little squares. I'm looking along here. As I said, you know, there's a couple of non-twisted bits, but it looks to be two. Two out of what is the best part of 1,800 pins, because that's roughly how many are in one quarter. Fucking awesome. If all I've done is not twist two pairs of threads in that entire quarter, hello frickin' Luya, that's a good percentage rate. Whereas the last one we spotted a few interesting faux pas. I mean, these threads don't help. I could trim them now, to be honest. But I'm not going to just yet. In case I want to do something else with them. But, you know, if I look back at this top triangle, so let's see if I can... You're going to move up a bit. So, for example, I can see, even in my tiny little screen, that some of these pins show up better than others. So, again, it makes it look like there's potentially an error. So, if I find it, this pin here looks very different to all the others. It's not, it's just a slightly different angle. Because it's not straight. But, for example, there's a bit of a faux pas going on just off screen. You can't see that. Hang on. So there's a bit of a faux pas here. And there are a couple of other minor faux pas. But they are, once again, minor. And in the grand scheme of it all, we are dealing with minor. There's some other fancy shenanigans going on there, actually. It's not quite got the tension it should have, by the looks of it. Let's have a look. Yeah, something slightly fancy going on there, but again, chances are it will survive. But we have, my dear friends, well, let me zoom out just a little bit. Wrong direction. I am terrible at it's like it's a bit like reversing a car, only less intuitive. So we have half a triangle. We have half a square. It's some of it is the natural position. Some of it is the pins just give it a shade and distract you from a straight line, or make it look like a bit's missing, looks like there's a hole, looks like... yeah, as we all know, I spent a very long time poking holes very delicately to make sure they were dead straight. Because, of course, if the holes aren't straight, it's not going to be straight now, is it? And so, but we have half a square, my friends. I am pretty pumped about that. That's a good thing. Let me, in fact, try and take a picture of that as half a square. Yeah. Take a picture of half a square because, well, hallelujah. Yes, and it is quite surprising, and this is why you often don't see some of the mistakes until you take the pins out, because the pins distract you while trying to look at it. And also when the pins are up, because they're a couple of a centimetre and a half, nearly 2 centimetres off the ground, the heads are a lot closer, so it's harder to see through. It's a bit like looking down upon the trees. Even though the trunks are far apart, the tops are not. And because I look at it from an angle, you look at it more directly from above, but neither of us get a good view of what is at the bottom because, well, there are trees. And it does mean that it is very easy to make a mistake and just flat not be able to see it, even if you look, until you've taken the pins out, at which point you're not really in the mood to go and fix it. So it is, you almost don't see what it's going to look like till you rip the pins out. And this is part of the reason that I do rip the pins out, because I could arguably leave them all in there. I could push them all down. By the way, it's a real pain in the arse to remove them at the end. Even when we're finished and we've got just the 4 quarters holding it all down, it's really awkward to remove them all. It just is. It shouldn't be, but it just is. So, I am really pleased though. We've got half a square. The mistake ratio is good enough by my standards, and I'm no perfectionist, but we never like to look and go, oh look, there's some errors and some more errors and some more errors. Yeah, should I be chucking this in the bin? Seriously, the first one was a little bit more dodgy, but this one really is kind of up there. It's doing good. I'm really proud of that. So, we are going to turn the magic cushion, and we are ready to do the next triangle. But what we're also going to do is we're going to put back the cloth of protection, because, well, that's a good plan. We like cloths of protection. Let me put that there for the moment. And what we will now do, knowing that we don't need the bottom one, we will slowly flip them over so that they are all in order for when I need them. Okay. Because this is what we ended up with last time, was after the dog shenanigans, was that I flipped them all over. Like this. Because then they pin themselves back. They're not trying to go round a corner. And the ones I want will be on top. So we make big balls of bobbins. The bobbin. And then these need to go on top as well. But what I will do is I'll pull you out from under there, because we need you. You're the first lot to go. So, and there, my dear friends, are our first lot of bobbins to make triangle number 3. Yay! And Nautica, this is part of the reason I'm documenting it is, once I get to the end of this square, I've got 17 more identical squares to make. But obviously I will make new and interesting errors for each and every one of them. At some point, I'm sure we're going to run out of more threads on some of them. But, while I do appreciate, believe me, I love you with all my heart, that you come and watch and you talk to me, because you make me feel so much less lonely and idiotic, sitting here, showing this to the world and maybe no one's watching. But it is really nice to see it come together, but it's also, once we've got multiple squares, once we've got to a point that, obviously it will get a bit repetitive, don't get me wrong, and I will understand if you kind of go, you put your drop in going, still at it? Yeah. And you wander off again because, there's only so much you can watch. But I kind of want to document it because it is going to be a large, epic piece of lace. And maybe there will be trials and tribulations along the way. Maybe something I have not yet thought of will come up. And I don't know, I kind of want to document it for my own kind of diary of doing it, which is why I'm not doing any of it off camera, except for sorting out the tangles from the dog thing. But I didn't actually move a single pin to achieve that. So, you know, I want to be able to look back and kind of remind myself of the journey of making it, because it will be kind of very much, you know, Frodo sets off to take a ring to a lava pit. You know, there will be mountains and fights and battles and hey my god, I've lost it, and you know, I certainly will lose the plot at some point. So, but we are halfway through square number 1. We have 70 triangles to go. And it kind of feels weird because this time last week I'd only just started the first one. And I've done 2 now. So if we can do 2 a week, for example. Well, 72 divided by 2, well, that's not 2 years now, is it? Because at one point it was looking like 1 a week and then there'd be 71 weeks of it. Now, obviously, when I have time off in December, maybe I can stonk through it a little bit quicker than that. But I'm not sure I'm going to do it every day, all day, if you know what I mean. I will want to do some other things, I'm sure. Sleep, hug dogs, watch some crap TV. As I say, it's not live, but I'll want to, you know, maybe watch some stream, play a few games, because I do that. I was playing Evercraft earlier. And it is... because I was a serious EverQuest fan. Oh my god, I spent like 19 years of my life, almost 20 hours a day given the chance, in EverQuest. So Evercraft is EverQuest effectively remade in Minecraft. So it's terrible graphics, which is fine. And they've done it really well. And so I can't wait for that to come out. It was a playtest thing. I also like Monsters and Memories. Shout out to the Monsters and Memories guys, especially Zukin, who may drop in here occasionally. Monsters and Memories is for people like me who loved EverQuest, but EverQuest evolved into something that was less enjoyable. They are targeting almost reawakening the fun and the challenges we had back in the day. But they're making it with modern tools, and the guys making it, out of all of the games that you generally see, if you see games being made, how many times, Diablo, for example, we want £100 for you to pre-order it, and if you do pay £100, you can get in 3 days before everybody else. £100. Or you get the kind of Kickstarter games. Hey, give us a crap ton of money for some perk that may not actually happen, for a game that may not actually happen. And I've fallen foul for a couple of those in my time. So, for example, I did Shroud of the Avatar. I spent far too much money on that game. And it's not a bad game. So, Chris, if you're out there, it's really not a bad game. Sorry. But it devolved away from the things that drew me to it in the first place. And I spent a few thousand on that game because I bought some stuff, I bought more stuff, I bought more stuff, I bought more stuff. I spent a few thousand on that game. Pantheon. When Pantheon was announced, it was to be EverQuest, you know, the new beginning kind of thing. And it was done by people who'd worked on EverQuest, and the guy running it had a very clear goal. I think he died. And then 9-10 years later, they suddenly... I thought it died off. I thought it had gone. Suddenly, I got an email. Hey, we're doing a playtest. It was around about last December. The game that they showed for... Now, the 9 years earlier when I said, here's some money, they were streaming regularly, and they had multiple zones. They were doing as a group, and it looked really quite good. The game I logged into last December looked like something I'd made in a couple of weeks. Now, I don't do graphics, I would have bought the graphics, but to be honest, it looks like they bought them too. The UI was very, very ugly, so very much along my kind of graphics. It had flaws, it was horrendous, and this was 9 years later, and I'd given these people like £500. Here we are, they're going to go live soon. Last time I played, they still only really had one zone. They only had one race. They only had a handful of the stuff done. Now, they are claiming that they will be going live in, I think it's November, December, with multiple races, blah, 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 and many zones. Well, they've not really tested it. So, and to be honest, when I played it, it was boring. It was awful. I didn't have the love for it. And it wasn't because it was 9 years later and I'd moved on. It was because it was actually kind of boring. But in the same time, Monsters and Memories has been around for about a year. And they have never asked for a penny. In fact, they actively refuse money. It's not, oh, here's a beer fund, you can donate if you want. They do not want your money, which is quite refreshing. And they did playtest last December. Their playtest far excelled beyond Pantheon. Far excelled. To the point, I pulled all-nighter. I was playing that stuff. And they've done a few playtests. I pulled some all-nighters because it's great fun. And it is, I believe, if they continue the way that it's going, which I think they will, because the guy running it is quite structured and adamant that certain things will not be bent to the will of people, because one of the biggest problems you get in games these days is they don't like death penalties. Well, if you died, you kind of got it wrong. You took on something you couldn't do, or you were unfortunate, but what's wrong with there being a penalty for, going kicking the dragon in the nuts? If you're not big enough to take it on, don't poke it, And so he's quite strict in that there will not be this. There will not be some of these kind of fancying down to making it easier and all the rest of it. He wants it to be, like EverQuest was when we all enjoyed it, a challenge. And so he very much recognises that this will mean that it does not appeal to everybody. And that's fine, because to be honest, I'm the same. I would rather make a game that was what I said it was going to be than hear all of the, oh, but I want to be able to have a fluffy cat as a pet. And, oh, I want to have wings. I want to be able to... No. It would be stupid in this environment. It makes no sense. Not doing it. So I'm going to leave you with our glorious plans of future. And I will be back tomorrow because we're on a roll. And we'll see how long it takes to do the next triangle. But I shall see you all again shortly. Take care. Bye.